Leroy.
How did Cabbagetown get its name?
Well, the man was coming down the hill here, going pretty fast with his truck. He had a truckload of cabbage. Just got to this corner, the truck overturned, and cabbage went everywhere. All on the boulevard, no Carroll Street. And people got to looking around at him and all. He said, pick them up and take them where you want to. He says, I'm not going to pick them up. He says, you have all the cabbage you want. And everybody in the community come. And that night, you couldn't smell nothing but cabbage cooking all around here. And that's where Cabbagetown got its name.
Roll it together and tell the story again.
Yeah. Okay, now could you just tell the story again?
Man was coming down the hill, going pretty close, and he got to this curve, and the truck turned over. Cabbage went that way, cabbage went that way. And people got together and around, and he said, pick them up and take them. He said, I'm not going to pick them up. And that night you couldn't smell nothing but cabbage cooking in the whole community. So they said that from then on, they call this Cabbagetown. And it's had this name for years and years.
So the truck turned over right out here?
Turned over right here. As it come around this curve.
Did you resent the place being called Cabbagetown as a child?
Well, no. It didn't bother me. And I don't think it bothered anybody else.
Well, it bothered Effie Gray.
Well, that's an Effie.
Yeah.
A lot of things bothered Effie Gray.
Who was Effie Gray?
Effie Gray was the lady that used to live in this house back
She
here.
lived right there.
And she was she's a real strong lady. She worked in the mill at the time of the strike. She was against the strike. And one day there was some of the organizers sitting on her porch, and she was scrubbing the kitchen with real hot water. So she went out there and threw the hot water on them and said, oh, excuse me, I didn't know. They got away real fast.
This has been a good place to live around all these years. Everybody got along.
It was a real community.
It was a community.
I mean, everybody knew everybody else.
That's right.
And they, you know, we all at night everybody would gather up on the porch and do music, and the kids would play, and you knew your next door neighbor. Now folks hardly know who they live next to, but you knew who lived next door to you, not the street.
I lived over on Fulton Terrace. Come down this street for 50 years. And I've never had nobody bother me yet.
Did they have better houses for you supervisors?
Well, maybe some of us had better houses our own selves that we could live in. But I lived in a stucco house on the corner of Pearl Street and Fulton Terrace. And they up Pearl Street, there were several of the supervisors lived up Pearl Street. They were pretty good houses. I'll admit that. Church on the corner. Preacher lived in a brick house next to the church.
Did those belong to the Elses?
All of that property belonged to the Elses. From here all the way, well, a mile back that way.
When did they start selling off the village?
That was about 57, wasn't it?
Something like that. This company started in 1868 by Jacob Elsie. Him and Mays and Elsie to start with. They had one little building up there, and that little building is still there in the center of that company up there. And they sold, I think in '57, they sold to a company in Carolina. And another company bought it, and then it could become Fabric America by Allied Products, bought all of it. And when they closed it down, they moved most of it to Clanton, Alabama. And I think some of it went to, let's see, a town up here in northwest Georgia. And, but they didn't stay in Clanton, Alabama too long because they didn't do too good down there. They couldn't teach the people how to run the machinery, and never did get some of it started up right. They asked me to go and I wouldn't go.
You wouldn't go to Alabama?
That's right. I wouldn't go to Clanton, Alabama.
I forgot what I've asked. What about Ira Stevens? He lived in that house.
Ira Stevens lived in that house when I've seen water a foot in his living room. And that store right there, when it was Roger's store, it flooded a lot of times because the water, there wasn't enough sewage around here to take the water. Every time it rained, this place had it up to your belt.
Yeah, that's where we kids used to swim.
Uh-huh.
That's what about when the 24th.
How about how did Cabbagetown get its name?
Well, Cabbagetown got its name from a truck coming down the hill there too fast and loaded with cabbage, and it turned over right here at this corner, and they went all over Boulevard and all over Carroll Street. Everybody got to standing around looking. The man says, "Pick it up and take what you want." Says, "I'm not gonna pick it up." And that night you could smell cabbage cooking all over the country around here. And from that till today, years ago, this is Cabbagetown.
You eat cabbage that night?
I did. I never did eat cabbage. Don't like it.
Still don't, do you?
Still don't.
Do you still live in that house up there?
No, I live on Glenwood, close to Grant Park.
A lot of the folks moved out after
Yeah,
the
a lot.
mill sold their houses.
Yeah.
And the houses started going down after they sold absentee landlords.
That's right. They sold all the property around here. I bought my mother and father a house over on Bowling Terrace. That house done been tore down and moved.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, I was ready.
Well, I was there 5 years, went away and stayed 2 months and come back and made 42 more. I worked 47 years all told.
You remember giving them books out.
Yep, sure do.
This one's got your picture in it.
I bet it has. I tell you how many years I was there.
Yes, sir, it sure does.
Yep, there's old Norman Gunn, Lester Duckett,
Yeah.
Old Man Head. See, how many years did I have in this one? Yeah. I was there 34 years when this picture was made.
Yeah.
Work preparation, yeah. That was our schoolroom.
That's right. That's right.
Could you tell about how you felt about working under this gentleman?
You don't want me to tell on you, do you, Leroy?
Go ahead and tell them whatever you want to tell them.
No, he was a good foreman. There's no question about it. He was real good. I never did have no trouble with him. If I ever went to his job, he always told me what to do, and I worked on that job as long as I worked for Leroy McCoy. I worked every day.
As long as you run your job, I didn't bother nothing.
Never said a word, never come around and said a word.
except, hey.
Yeah. Good
And I spoke
morning.
to everybody else when I spoke
Good
to you.
morning, yeah.
Because I didn't want nobody pointing their finger and say, he's going with that woman.
That's right. That's the truth, Leroy. He treated everybody alike.
I tried my best to.
And he was one good foreman, there's no question about it.
I appreciate that.
He treated everybody good and they enjoyed working for him.
And if you ever asked me a question and I didn't know it, I went and found out about it,
That's
didn't I?
right, you
And
sure
I come
did.
back and told you.
No, it wasn't delayed either.
That's right.
We got the message straight out. He was one
Well,
good
who
man.
y'all gonna show these pictures to?
Hi.
Well, I hope to people like you.
They better not tell them who we are, had
I
to
remember-
Leroy.
Oh. I remember one time I was at a girl's house and looked up and saw Lucy looking out the window at me. You remember who that was?
No.
They lived on the corner of Wiley and Carroll.
No, 10L in Carroll, Leroy.
Was it 10L?
Why, yeah, you know,
Okay.
the 10L come right around the mill there and went across Carroll Street and went
Robert
straight on.
Gladden's sister.
Yeah,
I don't remember that.
Well, that's been a lot of years back.
I know it.
There's one of my
She was on-
supervisors, Raymond Thompson.
She was working on the 3rd floor, Leroy.
Yep, in the spinning room.
That's right.
Philly.
Yeah,
right.
but they mostly kept her on warp all the time.
Ethel Davis was spooler hand.
Yeah.
Was a lot of romance in the factory?
No, there was
No.
not. No.
Bueller Howell.
In the spooler room there was a lot of confusion. I guarantee you on
There was
that.
Dan Turner that used to fix spoolers.
I was spooling, and the dolphins would get around. They'd come out there and help me spool. And Marvin Sargent didn't like it. And he told me he was going to come down there and tell my mama on me. And I told him, well, when I got off for him to come home with me. And he wouldn't do it. He said, I'm going to write her a note. I said, well, don't you give it to me, because I won't give it to her. I said, now, if them dolphins wants to help me spool this yarn up, it ain't none of your business. He said, well, I'm going to tell your mama on you. But they helped me anyhow, whether he liked it or not. They'd come out there and he'd watch my spooling room every time, and he'd run them dolphins out there and make them go back to the spooling room. We aggravated old Marvin, I'm telling you right now. We aggravated Marvin Sargent.
You had 39 years when this picture was made, wasn't it?
What kind of music did you have?
Music.
Spooler room, Lord have mercy, it was spinning, was them things are running, wasn't it, Leroy?
We didn't have no music. We
No,
had noise.
that's right. Them warpers and them spoolers was humming.
That's all
Ooh,
right
mercy,
you
Lord.
was up there.
That's right.
Ain't you never been to the cotton mill?
You've missed a life. You have missed a whole life
I've
by
got,
not
I've
going
got the
through
ones that's got Mama
going-
and Daddy's picture in it.
the cotton mill and hearing the noise of the weaving and the card room
They had
and
their
the
60th
spooler room,
anniversary.
the humming of them machines in the spooler room. That's all you could hear. And the warpers are running. It was just a hum out of all that machinery.
Norman, Benjamin.
It was
Oscar.
good music.
That's the old man right there that started it all in 1868. That's what it says, 1868.
Yeah. And that was right up here next to the railroad at Powell Street with the little old mill
Called it
there.
Elsie and May building.
Yes, sir. And they tore that down when they built the
No, it's,
first
the
old
mill's
mill.
built around it.
Well,
It's
no.
that, you know where the bleacher part is?
Yeah,
Well, part of that was that building.
back then, Leroy, back when they first built that old mill, there was not no building there where that bleacher's at. There was houses there. Let me tell you, where Carroll Street goes on across 10L and goes up to the railroad, there was 4 little houses along there.
Oh yeah, on the 10L.
And then here on
But I'm
10L,
talking about up in the mill yard where the machine shop is.
Well,
Part of that was the old building because it's
Yeah,
got the
back-
1868 on it.
back right against the railroad.
Yeah, right at the railroad.
Yeah. But later on, they tore them houses down. Well, they didn't tear them down, they moved them somewhere. And then built that bleacher there.
These is the last two men that run most of the mill.
Norman,
Norman and Clarence.
yeah.
Did you know any of the big bosses?
Yeah, their grandchildren, we learned them to operate that machinery there in that mill. We learned them to spool, we learned them to creel warps, we learned them to spin, we learned them to doff.
That's
He
right.
told them they had to go in there and learn it just like he learned it. And us children learned them how to do it.
That man, and that man were my big bosses at different times.
Yeah.
Hankins, Watson was the last big man there. That's when it shut down.
Yeah, he was the last one there.
Did you travel much outside of Cabbagetown?
No, definitely no. Cabbagetown was Fulton County, a Fulton Bag community, and we stayed at Fulton Bag community.
I'll tell you a little story about these two smokestacks. There was a man worked there at one time, and he wanted to quit. So he went down and told Mr. Florence. He said, "Mr. Florence, I'm gonna quit. I want my money." Mr. Florence said, "Well, what's your trouble?" He said, "Well, to tell you the truth, them two smokestacks on the wrong side of the railroad." Well, that man was gone about 10 years, and he came back. Walked in at Mr. Florence's office and said, "Mr. Florence, I'd like to get a job." Mr. Florence looked up at him and said, "Oh, yeah, I know you." He said, "Well, I'd like to get a job." He said, "Well, we can't use you because we never have moved them two smokestacks. They're still on the wrong side of the railroad track."
That is just about like Mr. Florence. Easy talking somebody.
He was the head of the employment
Yeah,
department.
he was a good old man, I'm telling
He
you.
sure was.
Well, you said you stayed in Cabbagetown.
Yeah,
Why did you stay in Cabbagetown?
well, we was young and we didn't have no desire to go nowhere else.
Good place to live.
That's
wasn't it?
right. Everybody knowed each other, and we was a good bunch of people. And we come here from the country, everywhere in the country, and come here and set up our lives here. And we loved it, and we stayed right here. We had no desire to go and see other places.
Now, I've heard from some other people that people look down on cotton mill people, call them lint heads.
Well, they didn't do it here because we was
They didn't do it to your face, did they?
No, sir, they didn't. They sure did not, I'm telling you. No, they did not. Because everybody knowed one another and ready to help one another if they was in any kind of situation. And we enjoyed everybody. We knowed them. We had our sidewalk singing here and music.
This was one of my departments.
People,
This is one of my departments.
You had your talk about that sidewalk singing.
well, the churches, we went to these churches and they all went to church, and on Saturday night or Sunday, we'd have open air meetings around in the community. And the churches would gather together and we'd have services and open air services and singing all Sunday evening. So we didn't desire to go nowhere else. This was our home and we appreciated it and we enjoyed it.
What songs did you sing?
Church songs, all kind of religious church songs is what we sung.
Could you sing any of those songs now?
No, I ain't able to sing. And another thing, I'll tell you another thing. Right out there in the middle of that village, they had a bandstand out there. And every year, election year come along for the governor or the mayor, John Carson would make music and sing and try to get people to vote for the man that he was working for. And
Eugene Town.
yeah, he'd come out there and say, "You remember making music for Gene, don't you, Leroy?"
I sure do.
He'd stay out there maybe.
Old moonshine cabbage and
Ha-
violin cabbage down.
And that's where that cabbage come into.
Yeah, they made up a song.
You need to laugh. It's the damn truth.
That's all she know to sing. Violin cabbage down.
I was
They-
telling them how
That's where they
Cabbage
got
Town
that
got,
cabbage at.
I was telling them how Cabbage Town got its name, about that truck wrecking down there
No,
at
that
Boulevard.
didn't
Yeah.
happen.
They told
happen.
that and it never
Pure
did.
lie about it.
Well, it
Hard
wasn't
car.
either, honey.
What's the other story then? If it's not the truck flipping over, what's the other?
Did
Where
you
did it
see
go?
it, Leroy?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I didn't see it and I didn't know
sure
nothing
did.
about it. I sure didn't know nothing about it.
Could you sing that song? Violin cabbage down?
Leroy, do you know it? I don't know all of it.
No, I don't know it.
Moonshine Cake could
We
sing.
done got too old to think about such as that.
Yes, Lord.
Yeah, I'll be 79 in third day of next month.
Well, I'll be
Well, I'll
84.
79 and 4th day of December.
So low.
And yours next month, Leroy?
Mine is the third day of August.
Well, I declare. And hers is the 4th of December and mine's the 23rd of December. She'll be 79, I'll be 84, and you'll be 79. Well, we've been here 2 or 3 days, ain't we? Yeah, we've been here together 2 or 3 days.
I'm not ashamed of my age, though.
Lord, no.
I ain't ashamed of it either.
I'm so proud the good Lord's been good to me that long.
Well, now, one of the things that amazes me is that you both seem, all three of you, in such good shape, and you spent all that time in a cotton mill with all this lint around. How did that happen?
Well, I tell you, we used a lot of humidity to hold the lint down a whole lot. Now, the
That's
card
right.
room and the spinning room had an awful lot in it, but most of the rest of it didn't have that much lint in it.
Spinning room wasn't too bad.
It wasn't too bad, especially on filling. Warp spinning was a little bad, but
And we
Good,
were just
and it
good,
wasn't.
stout, healthy people, and we could work in it, and the good Lord took care of us. We were just good, strong, healthy people. And that's something that never did bother me. Never did bother me.
I want to ask you about a story. I saw a picture in the Atlanta Historical Society showing tear gas being used out here. Do you recall any story about that? About a boxcar they were trying, the strikers were trying to keep the boxcar from moving, and somebody threw some tear gas.
I don't recall that. Do you, Leroy? Well, did that happen when they had that exposition strike? You know, it was worse there. Their strike was worse there than ours. What I mean, there's so many more outsiders went there. Well, they did try to turn over a railroad boxcar there on Jefferson Street, but they was a lot rougher there during their strike than ours was. Lots worse. But I never heard tell of no tear gas being thrown out. I sure didn't.
Now, you've corrected me because it was at Exposition. It wasn't here. You're right.
That's right. Because you see, Main Street come around off of Marietta Street and went down around to Jefferson Street, and that street was right at the fence where the mill was fenced off, and the railroad went right straight, and they had to open that gate for them cars to go down in that building down there, and that's where that happened. They tried to turn that railroad boxcar just inside of that fence because they tore the gate open, and a friend of mine was living there and working there when it happened, and she was living on Jefferson Street just over from the mill when they had that strike there. And she said they really tore up things there on that railroad that went down into the mill yard. But I don't recall her saying that they threw in the tear gas down there, but she said they had to call the National Guards out there. But there wasn't nothing like that here at that time.
Did you have any National Guard around?
No, not here. No. And just barely a few city polices, because they had their guards out here and they took care of all the employees, didn't they, Leroy?
that's right.
Our own guards for the mill took care of that because they deputized
We
my
had-
brother and he was a guard.
We had a mill police.
Yeah,
and
two. We had two
of
male
them,
police.
two of them.
Yeah.
Could
One
you
of
talk
them-
about your brother and getting deputized?
No, because I wouldn't want to say nothing about my brother because he lived to be 86 years old and he was with us when he passed away, and he was a sweet old rascal.
When did your mother pass away, Lucy?
79.
In 79?
My husband died in 78, 87. My husband died in 87, and my mom died in 89.
58. 58.
Yeah, 58. And mama died in
Mother
59.
died in 59.
And we were still living right down there across the street here on Gaskell Street.
How many of your children worked in the mills?
Mine,
Yes.
Do you remember when
One.
Cleve fell through the glass?
yeah, glass door.
I'm the one that stopped the blood from
Yeah,
keeping him bleeding to death.
yeah. I remember you coming up the street
Yeah.
and you come in the house and mama was having
She got me a
fit.
big towel and a stick, and I wrapped it around his arm and stopped the blood from flowing.
Yeah.
We took him to the hospital. Me and old man Jim Fur took him to the hospital.
That's right. Joyce was asking me about that corner there. You know, when we moved here, that where her building is at now, it wasn't there. It was a 2-story wood building, and it set this way on Carroll Street. And the old man lived on this in the house on Gaskell, and her son lived in the house behind that. And they run a used furniture store right there. And they had the upstairs. Leroy had in the front of it. There wasn't no sidewalk there. It was all sand, just as sandy. And that old man would sit there in the front of that door, and you just had 2 steps to go up in that store. And they had all kind of old used furniture. And Grandpa sat there and sold used furniture. And Jim run an ice truck.
I was looking at that, Lucy.
He run an ice truck.
Okay, I
And-
think we've got what we need.
Can Lucy show us her plaque?
Yes. But do we want to move for that?
Excuse me. I can get her where she is.
getting tired.
I can get her where she is.
Okay.
I think we take her.
We
No, I just stopped the camera for a second.
okay. Could you get Lucy to show you those things, please?
Her pins?
Yes.
Lucy, show Leroy your pins.
I got one of the 2 little diamonds and a sapphire.
To show the pins.
Well, when she gets back.
Okay.
No, where, I just
And
need a
also-
close. I just need a close up of her.
Maybe you.
Hold it just a
Hold
minute
it,
till
hold it a second.
she's gonna ask you to show them to me.
Okay.
Lucy, show Leroy your pins, your merits.
Isn't this your 40th year?
That's the 40. And
That's
this
what
is
I
the
thought.
45.
And this is a 45. 3 little diamonds. This one has 2 diamonds and a sapphire, and this one has 3 diamonds. 40 years and 45 years of service.
Well, is that, you got them same kind of Leroy?
I have this one. See, the last time I went there, I just made 42 years straight.
Yeah.
See, I worked 5 years and left, stayed gone too much, and then I come back and stayed 42 years to the day.
Yeah. And you got,
I have the 2 diamonds and the sapphire.
and she's got the.
She has the 3 diamonds because she was there 45 straight years.
Yeah.
Could you
That was real nice, Lucy.
could you 2 talk about being sisters in the mill?
Well, everybody knows us, know we're sisters. And another thing, she wasn't old enough to go to work when she wanted to go to work. So she just kept at me to help her get in the mill to work. So her birthday was supposed to be in December, and it was in May. We got
14th of May.
we got the family Bible, and we sat down and marked out her regular birthday and moved it up. from December till May, and took the Bible out there at the mill office, and then they give her a job. She's younger.
And I'll tell you what, in May when we first went to work, we worked from 6 in the morning till 6 at night.
That's right.
Go home
12
for
hours.
lunch, go back.
That's right.
Worked 5 hours on Saturday morning. I made $10.10 a week.
And we was working 12 hours too then, wasn't we, Leroy?
Well, I was working 11 hours at night. You know, they stopped off at 6 o'clock
Yeah.
in the morning,
Well,
and I worked 11 hours, 55 hours a week for $11.20.
I'm telling you, we go to work at 6, and they
You made a
give
little
us
bit more than I.
they give us an hour for dinner.